Millions of Americans prepare for the apocalypse as the global food crisis reaches unprecedented levels. Michael Snider reports, hundreds of millions of people are facing chronic hunger, and in the time that it will take you to read this article, the death toll from starvation on the other side of the globe will go even higher. But since the legacy media does not really talk about the global food crisis much, most Americans don't even realize that it's happening. Many of us are so obsessed with what Taylor Swift and other celebrities are doing, but when is the last time that you had a meaningful conversation with someone about global famine? According to the UN's World Food Programme, a food crisis of unprecedented proportions is unfolding right in front of our eyes at this moment. Conflict, economic shocks, climate extremes, and soaring fertilizer prices are combining to create a food crisis of unprecedented proportions. As many as 783 million people are facing chronic hunger. 783 million people are suffering from chronic hunger. These people are not just missing a meal or two. Those that are considered to be dealing with chronic hunger are hungry all the time. If you took the entire population of the United States and doubled it, you still would not have 783 million people. In some areas of the world, widespread starvation is already happening. For example, just check out what's taking place in Sudan. The UN Food Agency said Friday it has received reports of people dying from starvation in Sudan, where raging fighting between rival generals is hampering the distribution of aid and food supplies to those most hungry. I wish that I could tell you that things will get better, but that isn't true. Global hunger has been steadily rising for nearly a decade, and now global food supplies are really starting to get tight. For example, it's being reported that the global rice shortage is about to get even worse. Global rice shortages are set to worsen as India's exports of premium varieties encounter fresh hurdles due to a surge in freight costs amid the Israeli-Gaza war, and domestic shortages hit shipments of other types of rice. Exports of premium Indian basmati rice last month were half of what they were a year ago, with traders blaming freight rates that have doubled following a series of attacks on commercial ships by Iranian-backed Houthi militants. Global supplies of cocoa are getting very tight too. In fact, the price of cocoa recently hit the highest level in 46 years. Cocoa prices, limited to a 46-year high this week, climbed to a 46-year high in New York as concerns mount that seasonal harmattan winds across West Africa could dry cocoa fields and reduce yields for the Ivory Coast mid-crop in April. And this would pressure global cocoa production even further. Bloomberg reports the most active cocoa futures jumped as much as 2.2% to 4,961 per ton in New York. Prices are up to 126% since September 2022, threatening the costs of the world's top chocolate makers such as the Hershey Company. And if you like chocolate, you can still find it priced very low at many dollar stores. So if you plan to hoard your favorite chocolate bars, now is the time to do so. Meat is going to become even more expensive during the months ahead too. The bird flu is wiping out millions of chickens and turkeys, and the size of the U.S. cattle herd has fallen to the lowest since 1951. The U.S. cattle herd shrank to the lowest level in more than 7 decades as ranchers continued to send their cows to slaughter, threatening to keep beef prices at stubbornly high levels for consumers for at least another couple of years, while eroding profits for meat processors. There were 87.2 million cattle as of January 1st, down about 2% from a year ago, and less than anticipated by analysts surveyed by Bloomberg. The U.S. Department of Agriculture said Wednesday in its biannual cattle inventory report that's the smallest animal count since 1951, according to USDA data. So why is that a problem? After all, Americans were eating very well in 1951. Well, in 1951, there were 150 million people living in the United States. It's double that now, over double. Today, the population of the United States has reached 331 million, so there's less than half as much beef to go around per person. Of course, this is precisely what the globalist elite want. In fact, the head of WHO is publicly telling us that we need to eat less meat in order to fight climate change. WHO head Tedros Ghebreyesus declared war on meat and traditional agriculture in the name of fighting climate change. Our food systems, he said, are harming the health of people and planet. Food systems contribute over 30% of greenhouse gas emissions and account for almost 1/3 of the global burden of disease. Transforming food systems is therefore essential by shifting towards healthier, diversified, and more plant-based diets. Are you ready for a diet that's filled with lots of soy and lots of insects? Because that's the future that they have planned for you. And in a desperate attempt to control the climate, researchers funded by the elite are coming up with all sorts of extremely bizarre proposals, and here's one of them. Climate scientists are developing an umbrella-like shade the size of Argentina that would block the sun's rays to mitigate the effects of global warming on Earth. The wild idea comes from Israeli researchers who believe the 1 million square mile shade could reduce the Earth's temperature by 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit within 2 years. The team at Technion Israeli Institute of Technology is seeking up to $20 million for a prototype of 100 square feet, which they said could be achieved by 2027. Seriously, we're already not producing enough food for everyone, and they want to block up the sun using a giant umbrella. What do you think that would do to global food production? The elite also have plans for what we will drink. In fact, if you live in Los Angeles, you will soon be tasting the refreshing sweetness of water that has gone from toilet to tap. If you live in Los Angeles, California, and drink tap water, you might want to think again. In December, the California State Water Resource Control Board, SWRCB, moved to implement a new system that will recycle up to 60% of LA's sewage water, to a process now being referred to as toilet to tap. Well, look, since the 1970s, mid-70s, 80s, when I was, I was a biology major at Queens College, we had a field trip, Long Island water recycling plant, one nice Saturday morning, and they told us that at that time, 25% of the water being consumed by people from their tap, that is, 25% was from sewage water. Now, the sewage water here, it says, will be directed to a facility and then treated and piped back into Los Angeles homes after meeting purity standards evaluated by the city. Doesn't that sound wonderful? Of course, none of the plans and programs that the elite are implementing will be able to change our trajectory. We're heading into the greatest period of chaos in all of human history, and tens of millions of Americans are feverishly preparing for what is in front of us. The following comes from an outstanding article by Kay Smith. A study published in mid-January found that a majority of Americans and Canadians in certain areas have done something to prepare for the apocalypse in the last 12 months. Are you even slightly surprised? More than 40% of residents in Maine, Nebraska, and Arizona, and half of those living in Ontario and British Columbia, are prepping for a North American apocalypse by purchasing various goods, according to a study published in mid-January. Most people are stockpiling food, water, fuel, weapons, learning survival skills, and more, but an overwhelming majority of residents in other states are totally blind and ignorant to the risks posed by being alive in the modern world. America is in a massive amount of trouble, and very few people want to admit it. As I recently told the first host, Jesse Kelly, we don't make anything the rest of the world wants to buy except for upcoming seasons of The Chosen. We don't produce most of what we need domestically. We buy it all from other parts of the world. And with the ongoing financial crisis from COVID-19 pandemic and idiot lawmakers' post-2008 economic policies, there's a good chance we won't be able to buy anything in the coming years. In addition to stockpiling food and supplies, many people are also having underground bunkers installed in their properties. The following comes from Fox Business. Some of USA bunker companies' clients have included government and White House officials who have lost confidence in the government structure. Other customers are looking for protection from natural disasters, like tornadoes or accidents such as toxic train derailments, as seen last year in East Palestine. But the majority of clients reportedly have concerns about nuclear warfare. 95%, I would say, want it for nuclear war, like World War III, Stump said, just everything pretty much being destroyed. The elite continue to insist that they have everything under control, but everyone can see that they don't. All of their systems are starting to break down all around us, and global events have begun to spin wildly out of control. If you haven't been getting prepared for what's coming, I would strongly encourage you to do so, because 2024 is going to be such a major turning point. Michael Snider reports on the Economic Collapse blog. And this is by Michael Snider. He says about the author, my name is Michael. Michael Snider, extremely controversial new book entitled Chaos, available on paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 7 other books that are available on Amazon, including End Times, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters, Commissions Earned. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work that he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, Most Important News, and he always freely and happily allows others to republish his articles on their own websites. You can connect with Michael on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and sharing his articles on your own social media accounts is definitely a great help. These are such troubled times that people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.